Welcome to Lift Your Story podcast with guest Dr. Ruth Gotian, author of the book, The Success Factor. Hi, everyone. I am Lori Ann. I am that gal from Mississauga, Ontario, Canada, and with...
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas. Welcome to our Lift Your Story podcast.
In this episode, we welcome Dr. Ruth Gotian, and she is the author of the latest book, The Success Factor. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. Now, is this your first book?
Well, my first book is a textbook, so not exactly, something that people are running to the Amazon to order, unless you're deeply interested in programs and systems of medical education. But for the wider lay audience, this is the first one, and I've put years of research into it. So I'm excited for the world to read it.
Okay, and the title, say that title again.
It's called The Success Factor.
Okay.
I have spent years studying extreme high achievers, the astronauts, Nobel Prize winners, Olympic and NBA champions, and I'm excited for everyone to hear what I found.
Fantastic.
That sounds pretty interesting to me. I wish I'd have found that when I was like 20.
Never too late, right?
I don't know if it would help me being retired, but
but you know what the original Dr. Ruth told me, Roy?
what?
You don't retire, you rewire.
Okay. Yeah,
There you go.
like that.
There you go.
I like that. What do you think, Lori Ann? That's pretty neat, isn't it?
I think so too. I like that word better too than retired.
Yeah.
That's right.
Nicer, rewired.
Something new on the horizon.
So what led you down this journey?
So I always thought success was for other people, that you had to be born into the right family, under the right conditions, with the right pedigree. And where I was working, I was actually surrounded by several Nobel Prize winners. And I realized they were regular people. And I was running a program at the time at the medical school that had a 3.5% acceptance rate. You had a better chance of getting into Stanford than you did of getting into this program. And at the age of 43, while working full-time and raising my family, I decided I wanted to take a deeper dive into this. So I went to get my doctorate and studied not just success, extreme success. And I looked at the most successful physician scientists of our generation. And since then, I couldn't stop. I thought I was done with research, but I was kind of addicted to it. So I wanted to know if what I found in those Nobel Prize winners, if the same thing would hold true for other extreme high achievers, the astronauts, the Olympic champions, the NBA champions, the NFL Hall of Famers. And once I realized that the astronaut is just like the Olympian, that's when I realized these are learned skills. And when it's learned skills, I know what my strengths are. I know how to teach adults. I'm an adult educator. And I wrote the book, The Success Factor, talk about it all over the world. And here we are.
It's interesting because, I think most people have the perception that people that are very successful, like you say, they've got something extra, the family, the connections, whatever it is. That they're not regular people. Well, everyday you and me.
Yeah, they are regular people, though. They really, really are. And sure, you see the great things that they've accomplished. But when I interviewed people such as Neil Katyal, who argued 45 cases before the Supreme Court, Apollo Anton Ono, the most decorated Winter Olympian, Dr. Tony Fauci, who's our leading infectious disease expert in the United States, Dr. Bob Lefkowitz, who's a Nobel Prize winner, Steve Kerr, who's an 8-time NBA champion. The more I talk to them, the more I realize that people are seeing their success. And I told them, that's why I reached out to you, because you reach it, but that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about what it took to get there. To me, that's a lot more interesting. To me, that's where the learning takes place. Not that you're an 8-time NBA champion or you won 8 Olympic medals or you won a Nobel Prize. that's a one-time thing. I want to know what it took to get there. So I did all of these interviews with these incredible people to really find out their story. And I realized that they were more similar, and they were not born with the silver spoon in their mouth at all.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I saw an interview of Kobe Bryant, and he was talking about when he was like 10 years old. Every summer he would go, and they had this big basketball park where everybody played basketball. He couldn't score a goal if he had to. He got ran over, people, and so he kept thinking, well, I'm gonna go back. He went back the next year, same thing. So he said, you know what? I'm gonna do something. So he sat down and he said, all right, everybody practices about an hour and a half a week, 2 hours a week. So I'm gonna double it. I'm gonna practice 4 hours a week, and I'm gonna practice my jump shot till I master it. Then I'm gonna do this. So he comes back when he's 14, and he was like a state basketball champion. Yeah. And then when he was in high school, instead of going to lunch, he'd go down and shoot baskets. I mean, he said that he said, I use math. How much time is it going to take me to do this? And that's what he did. And he was coaching his daughter's team too. And he told them the same thing. Here's what you have to do if you want to get here. He said, yeah, everybody sees me right now, but they didn't see me when I was a kid and couldn't make a basket to save my life.
That's right. But he loved it. He loved basketball, and he was willing to put in the work. Yeah. So he had that raw talent. And we have a lot of people with raw talent, but they are, couch surfing their talent away. Mm-hmm. But if you have the talent and you do something with it. Now, what he was doing was that he was outworking everybody. Yes. And he figured this is what he wants to do. And he's doing what all of the high achievers do, where they make their weakness, they turn that into their strength. And Kobe Bryant's one example, and I can give you 100 more people who did that. The part that is their weakness, they make their strength. And it's not just the athletes. In fact, one of the physician scientists I spoke to, he was the head of a department at Harvard, and he was a neuroscientist, but he needed to learn molecular biology for something, and he didn't know molecular biology. So he actually went to a 20-something-year-old who just finished college 2 years earlier, but he knew more molecular biology than anyone else in the lab. And this guy said, this is who I need to learn from. He didn't care about rank or hierarchy or position or role or title. If you are the expert here, I want to learn from you, and I will do whatever it takes. So while he wasn't shooting baskets, he was constantly learning and practicing, and they turning your weakness into your strength. Scott Hamilton, the Olympic gold medal figure skater, did the same thing. They had in the Olympics something called figures, where you have to go on a figure 8. And if you're off on the weight of your skate by even a millimeter, you get point deductions. And that was actually where he would always lose points. By the time it got to the Olympics, he had practiced that so much to turn his weakness into a strength that when it came time to break a tie, he won because he didn't have deductions on those figures. Turn your weakness into your strength.
Wow. Interesting. So I think a lot of people, they have fear of failure. Mm-hmm. They're afraid they're going to fail, so they don't try.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, they try and they get to a frustration point and they give up, where if they just went just a little bit harder, a little bit longer, they would have had a huge success.
That's right.
Is that what you found?
So some people fear failure, you're right. Some people also fear success. But the high achievers actually fear not trying more than they fear failing. And they're okay with failing if they're going to learn something from it. So it's fear not trying more than you fear failing. And the way these high achievers look at challenges is very, very different. They never question if they'll overcome the challenge. They know that they will. Instead, they focus on how to overcome the challenge. What is the strategy I haven't thought of? Because the second you switch from if to how, you're now in the driver's seat and you can control what you can control. And that's why so many of those people thrived during the pandemic, because they didn't say, oh, pandemic, oh, poor me, there's nothing I can do. They said, what is it that I can do? What can I control? Now, think of all the Olympians who've been training their whole life for this one moment. And then we have a pandemic and the Olympics are postponed. Well, they could have quit, but almost none of them did. And even though they couldn't go to a gym, they figured out how they continued to stay in shape and working out and training for the Olympics. It wasn't a question of if, it was a question of how. That's why they made it.
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic affected a lot of people. I mean, I think of the high school kids, high school seniors. It's their big year. They're on the varsity, whatever team. You know, it's kind of the pinnacle of your, early education. No prom, no football game.
No graduation. Yeah.
Yeah, all that stuff. I mean, that I just couldn't imagine that. Having to go through that if you're in high school, even way back when I was in high school.
Yeah. And that's their reality. And their first year was on Zoom of college.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they did it, by using Zoom. Not the same, but
had no choice.
Something. Yeah. Yeah. And you were featured in Forbes as well. That's pretty exciting. How'd that feel?
I have a column there. In Forbes, but I've also had several people writing about my book in different periodicals, including Forbes. So I'm excited because it's hitting the Amazon bestseller list. So it's really getting out there. And it's really about putting good content out there. So I'm excited that I can continue to talk about success and high achievers and mentoring and all that good stuff. Put the content out there, and I'm excited that other people are excited by it and motivated by it, and write great reviews of the book. So I'm excited. The work of the Success Factor is really getting out there.
Excellent.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Are you working on a new book now?
Well, the Success Factor just came out, so I want to give it a little bit of time to really make its mark. And in fact, I'm part of Thinkers 50, which is a group that identifies and ranks the top management thinkers. And we had a LinkedIn Live with the co-founders today, Stuart Craner and Des Dearlove, and they said to me, because people always ask me, do I have my next book? And they said, take a pause. Don't go jumping into your next book, because there's still a lot to, spread the word out about this first book. So do that, finish that, and then go work on the next book. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Trying.
Makes
Trying.
sense. Yeah.
It's exciting though, because when you have that one book, that's why I was saying that, we wrote a book, and next time we're okay, what's my next one going to be? You're already thinking about the next one. Once you have that one that you have, it's just exciting, right? So
I definitely have ideas for sure.
Perfect.
What was one of your more interesting interviews you did on writing your book?
There were really a lot of them that I found really interesting. In terms of, there were some that were more surprising. So for example, Dr. Peggy Whitson was the former chief astronaut of NASA. And I found out she worked at NASA, she was a biochemist, but she had to reapply over 10 years to be an astronaut because she wasn't accepted the first time, the second time, the third time. But she really wanted to be an astronaut, so she never gave up. And it's a good thing she didn't, because she ultimately became NASA's chief astronaut. She became the first female commander of the International Space Station, a role she's held twice. She spent more days in space than any American astronaut of any gender. And this is somebody who just didn't quit, even though she was turned down. And in fact, all but one of the astronauts who I interviewed had to apply multiple times to become an astronaut. So I thought that was very fascinating. I also, what I found really fascinating was that the Olympians and Nobel Prize winners, I always ask them to show me their medals or their rings or whatever. And only 2 of them had it on display, which I thought was unusual. Like, how do you not have a trophy room? And they said to me, it was never about the medals. That's not what this is about. And that's why one of them had it in a safe, one had it in a box under the bed, one had it in a nightstand, one had it in a brown paper bag in the sock drawer. And I thought that was really funny. But this is a theme that kept coming up, because they said to me, the Olympics, the championships, that's one chapter in my life. It's not the entire story. And they're on to something else. They have another goal. That's why they didn't crumble once they got that medal. And I think these are important lessons that I talk about in the book, in the success factor, that it's never about one goal. It's never about one extrinsic thing where other people are judging you. It's not about a medal, a promotion, a reward or award. Sure, that can be a short-term motivator, but it's not going to be sustainable. You have to find something from within and let that be the fire. Let that be your engine. Let that be your motivation. That's how you're going to become successful.
Yeah, and I've talked to some people in the military that have medals, and you'll say, hey, what's that? Oh, it's just stuff you get. That's just stuff you get,
Yeah.
And they just kind of brush it off, and I would really like to know the story, but then I did talk to one guy, and he said, a lot of these things bring up a lot of painful memories. He said, that's why veterans don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
He said, let me give you an example. This one here I got because I was there when my best buddy got killed. I was standing right beside him. He said, so I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, okay, that makes sense. So I don't ask anybody anymore.
Yeah. Yep. And it's interesting. One of the people who I spoke with and become a good friend of mine, his name is Devin Harris. He's one of the original members of the Jamaican bobsledding team. So if you ever watched the movie Cool Runnings, that was right.
Yeah.
That was loosely based on his team. And we're on a Zoom together for something. And then I must have asked him about medals. Now, he didn't win Olympic medals, but he has plenty of others. And he's like, it's on some shelf somewhere. It's like filled with dust. And it's like, what is this? He's like, oh, this is from I don't understand. You got participation medals at the Olympics? Like, what is this about? And, this is somebody who grew up on a tropical island, really had to change the culture in order to be able to go to the Olympics, right? And any medals he got, he wasn't putting on display, which it was fascinating to me. Because again, he kept saying over and over again, it's about the journey. It's about what you can accomplish, what you can do when you set your mind to it, over and over and over again. Just yesterday, I spoke again with 2-time NBA champion Zaza Pachulia for the Golden State Warriors. And he was saying the team chemistry, that is, you can have the best players on the team, but if you don't have the chemistry, you're not going to win a championship. That's why it's so important. That's why they really support each other so much. And wouldn't that be great if we had that in the workplace?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Awesome.
Right?
Yeah. There is no I in team, right?
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, it's hard to believe that all these people, these very successful people like that, have been able, some of them since they were kids, and focus on that goal of what they want to do. They put the work in, they've been rejected, turned down, passed over, whatever.
Yeah.
But they kept going,
Yeah.
What do they tell you? What is the reason they say that they kept going no matter what?
It was just something, it was this internal fire within them. And they realized this is not something that they can stop doing. This is part of who they are. And they understand that even if they don't totally meet that goal, they're moving the field forward in some way. So for example, if we're going back to our scientist friends, right? And let's say they know somebody who suffered from cancer. And for those of us who know people who've suffered from cancer, it is devastating to the person, to the family. It's really quite torturous what they have to go through. Now, imagine this person loves science and they decide that they're going to dedicate themselves to finding a treatment for a particular kind of cancer. Even if their experiments don't work, their grant funding gets rejected, their paper gets turned down. Sure, they're frustrated, but they're not going to stop because they want to make sure that no one else has to suffer like their family suffered when somebody in the family had cancer. So they're going to try again. And while they may never ultimately find the treatment for it, everything they do will get them one step closer. And someone eventually will be able to build on it and build on it and build on it until one day we are going to get that treatment. So they can't stop. They can't stop. It's that fire within them. And they are constantly pouring gasoline on that fire to make sure that it doesn't burn out and they can stay inspired and motivated. And for them, it's not about the Nobel. If they love science, they're going to keep doing and trying to find that treatment for cancer with or without the Nobel. It's something within, something much deeper, much, much deeper. It's not about find your passion and you'll never work a day in your life. It's so much more than that. This is what you were put on this earth to do.
Yeah. It's almost a calling.
It's a calling. It's exactly right. It's a calling.
I mean, it's what you're put here to do, and you're going to do it.
And you're going to do it to the best of your ability.
I think that's fantastic.
That reminded me of a gentleman that I met, Pinball Clemens, and he's a Canadian and football player, but he's only, I think, 5'7", and they always said that he was never going to make it in football into the major leagues, and he did. And he tells a story. He says, I wasn't going to let those people put me down or tell me that I couldn't follow my dream. And yeah, persistent, and he did it. Yeah.
Whenever someone tells a high achiever no, all they hear is not yet. That's all they hear. They don't hear no. They hear not yet over and over again. And that's how these 4 Jamaican guys were able to compete on ice in a Winter Olympics.
That's amazing.
Right? Someone said no, and they said, we haven't convinced you yet. The word yet is always added.
Like that.
That's great. So how can our listeners reach out to you?
Sure. So first of all, the book is called The Success Factor. Wherever you love buying books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Target, it is there. Wherever your listeners are, anywhere in the world, on my website, ruthgotian.com/book, there is a listing of places all over the world, big box stores, independent bookstores, where you can find the book. And all social media is just my name, Ruth Gotian, and the book is called The Success Factor.
Beautiful.
Right.
Well, congratulations on your book, and thank you so much for being here with us and sharing all this with us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Can we get an autographed copy of your book? Somewhere?
We can arrange, we have book plates that we can send out for sure.
Okay, cool. All right, great.
Yeah, just make sure I get your address.
Okay, great.
Thanks again.
Thank you. It was really a pleasure to meet you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, likewise.
Take care.
Okay.